In a land filled with towering castles and whispering woods, lived a very brave knight. This knight was known throughout the kingdom for having the shiniest armor and the tallest, most splendid helmet. But the helmet had a secret. It was so grand and protective that its narrow slit for seeing the world was very, very small. The knight could only see what was directly in front of his nose, and nothing to the left, nothing to the right, and nothing far away. Have you ever tried looking through a tiny little hole? It can make the big, wide world seem very small and a little bit scary. Our story begins as the sun dips below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The knight stood at the edge of the dark woods. The woods were known for their twisty paths and deep shadows, and somewhere inside, a special glimmering stone had been lost. The knight had promised the kingdom to find it. But as the last sliver of sunlight vanished, the knight felt a familiar wobble of worry. How could he find a tiny stone in such a big dark place when he could barely see the path at his own feet? He took one step into the woods, and then another, his shiny armor clinking softly. The world through his helmet became a tiny circle of darkness. This was going to be much harder than he thought. The knight moved slowly, one heavy boot in front of the other. He held his hands out, bumping into the rough bark of a tree. An apology was felt, though no words were spoken. He shuffled to the side and bumped into another. The woods felt like a maze of unseen walls. He could hear the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the soft chirping of crickets. The sounds were all around him, but through the slit in his helmet, all he could see was more darkness, more tree trunks appearing suddenly before him. Frustration began to bubble up inside him. He wanted to be brave, but he felt clumsy and lost. He stopped and let out a long, quiet sigh, the sound muffled by his great helmet. Felt like an impossible quest. How can you be a hero if you can't even see where you're going? Just as he was about to give up and turn back, a tiny light flickered in his small field of vision. It was a gentle, pulsing glow, warm and inviting. It zipped left, then right, then hovered right in front of the slit of his helmet. It was a firefly. Not just any firefly, but one whose light seemed to shine with a special kindness. The knight had never been this close to a firefly before. He watched mesmerized as it danced in the air. The firefly seemed to sense the knight's predicament. It gave a little flicker, as if offering a greeting. The knight, unsure what to do, simply stood still. The firefly then floated a few feet ahead and pulsed its light twice, a clear invitation to follow. The knight considered this. Trust a tiny bug he had only just met? It seemed like a strange idea. He had always relied on his own strength and his own limited sight. But his own sight wasn't helping him now. He took a hesitant step forward, following the light. The firefly led the way, its light a steady beacon in the vast darkness. It never flew too fast or too far ahead. When a large, mossy root snaked across the path, the firefly would dip down and circle it, its light illuminating the obstacle. The knight, seeing the glow, would carefully step over the root. When a low-hanging branch reached out like a woody arm, the firefly would hover just below it, painting it with light so the knight could duck. The knight began to understand. The firefly was his eyes, seeing the path for him. He started to relax, the stiff worry in his shoulders softening with each step. He was no longer just a knight stumbling in the dark. He was part of a team. He was the feet, and the firefly was the eyes. Their journey continued deeper into the woods. The knight learned to read the firefly's signals. A quick, bright flash meant, stop. A slow, gentle pulse meant the path was clear and safe. A little looping dance meant there was something interesting to the side. Following one of these looping dances, the firefly led him to a patch of glowing mushrooms, casting an ethereal blue light on the forest floor. The knight had never seen anything so beautiful. Without his guide, he would have walked right past this magical secret. He felt a sense of wonder and gratitude. He was seeing more of the woods by trusting the firefly than he ever could have on his own. They came to a babbling brook. The water gurgled and splashed, the sound filling the night. The knight could hear it, but he couldn't see how wide it was or where the best place to cross might be. He stopped at the edge, feeling the familiar uncertainty return. What should he do now? The firefly, sensing his hesitation, flew across the brook and hovered over a line of smooth, flat stones that made a perfect bridge to the other side. It danced over each stone, one by one, lighting them up like a magical runway. The knight took a deep breath. He had to put his complete trust in his tiny friend. He lifted one heavy boot and placed it right where the firefly had first glowed. The stone was solid. He followed the light, stepping from one glowing point to the next, his feet finding purchase every time. He reached the other side, his heart thumping with a mixture of relief and excitement. They had done it. They had crossed the brook together. This feeling was new. It wasn't just the pride of being a brave knight, it was the warmth of successful teamwork. As they moved on, the knight found himself listening more intently than ever before. He listened to the firefly's silent language of light, and he listened to the sounds of the forest. He could hear the crunch of his own footsteps on dry leaves, the whisper of the wind through the pines, and the soft hum of his tiny companion. He realized that seeing wasn't the only way to understand the world. By trusting his ears and trusting his friend, he was building a much bigger picture of the world around him. He thought about his heavy helmet. For so long he believed it made him strong and safe. But now he saw that it had also closed him off, making him rely only on what he alone could see. The firefly, so small and fragile, was teaching him a new kind of strength, the strength of partnership. Do you think it's sometimes easier to be brave when you have a friend helping you? The air in the woods began to change. It grew cooler, and the scent of damp earth and sweet flowers filled the knight's helmet. The firefly began to pulse its light with a new, excited rhythm. It flew ahead into a small clearing, circling a particular spot on the ground. As the knight approached, he saw it. Tucked beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree, nestled in a bed of soft moss, was the glimmering stone. It wasn't shining brightly on its own. Instead, it seemed to absorb the firefly's light, reflecting it back with a gentle, pearlescent glow. It was beautiful. The knight had found it. Or rather, they had found it. He knelt down, his armor creaking, and gently picked up the smooth, cool stone. He held it in his gauntlet, watching as it shimmered in the light of his friend. A feeling of pure accomplishment washed over him. He had completed his quest, not through his own might, but through cooperation and trust. He looked at the firefly, which had settled on a nearby leaf, its light pulsing softly. The knight offered a slow, deliberate nod, a silent thank you filled with immense respect for his small but mighty guide. The journey back was different. The knight walked with a newfound confidence. He no longer felt the anxiety of his limited vision. He trusted the firefly completely. They moved through the woods with a smooth and practiced rhythm, a silent dance between guide and follower. They crossed the brook again, this time without any hesitation. They passed the glowing mushrooms, and the knight gave them a fond glance. The woods no longer felt like a scary, confusing maze. They felt like a place of wonder, a place where he had made a friend and learned a valuable lesson. He realized that courage wasn't about being fearless or being able to see every danger. Courage was about taking that next step, even when you can't see the whole path, because you trust the friend who is lighting the way for you. As they reached the edge of the woods, the first light of dawn was beginning to peek over the horizon. The sky was turning a soft gray, and the birds were beginning to sing their morning songs. The knight turned to the firefly, holding the glimmering stone out on his palm. The firefly circled the stone one last time, its job complete. It gave a final bright flash, a friendly farewell, and then zipped back into the shadows of the woods just as the sun began to rise. The knight watched it go, a feeling of warmth spreading through his chest. He was alone again, but he didn't feel lonely. He had a new understanding of the world. The knight walked back to the castle, the glimmering stone held safely in his hand. The people of the kingdom would celebrate his success, hailing him as a brave hero. They would see his shiny armor and his grand helmet, and think he was strong because he was a great knight. But the knight knew the truth. He was strong because he had been brave enough to trust someone else. He had learned that a team, even a team of one big knight and one tiny firefly, could achieve things that one person alone could not. He knew he would never look at his helmet in the same way again. It was still a part of him, but it no longer defined the limits of his world. His world was now as big as the trust he was willing to place in a friend. Have you ever worked with a friend to do something you couldn't do by yourself? It feels amazing, doesn't it? From that day on, the knight was known not just for his shiny armor, but for his wisdom. He understood that everyone has different strengths, and that when we combine those strengths, we become so much more powerful. He looked forward to his next adventure, knowing that he would never truly be alone. Perhaps next time, he and a new friend would explore the Whispering Caves to learn about echoes and sound, or climb the Crystal Mountains to learn about different types of rocks. The world was full of amazing things to learn, and the greatest adventures were the ones you shared. Educational core. This story teaches children the practical skills of teamwork and relying on others' strengths to overcome personal limitations. Moral core. This story instills the value that true courage is found in trusting a friend, not in facing challenges all by yourself.